Okay, so welcome to everyone who has joined us for our session today, Your Career in Physiotherapy. My name is Olivia and I am currently a student ambassador here at Macquarie University. We have a really exciting and interesting session planned for you today, and I'm really pleased to welcome our three guest speakers. So first up, we have Associate Professor Taryn Jones, who is the Director of the Doctor of Physiotherapy program here at Macquarie. We also have Jake, our final year Doctor of Physiotherapy student, and Kate Bellamy, our alumni who graduated the physiotherapy degree last year and is now a physiotherapist at the Children's Hospital at Westmead. So today our speakers are going to be sharing their expert insights into the physiotherapy field, as well as their personal journeys and experiences. So I'll start with you, Taryn, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Now, students going into the Doctor of Physiotherapy program often come from a wide range of different backgrounds. So how do students actually go about applying for the course? What does the program look like and what can students expect?
Oh, big question to start off with. For applications, there's a fairly simple process, really. So all applications for domestic places inside the Doctor of Physiotherapy are put through the university's admission centre. The main thing to consider when applying is that you need to be able to meet our prerequisite requirements in order to apply for the Doctor of Physiotherapy. So firstly, the most, probably the thing that students want to know most is the GPA requirement, and that sits at 4.5 out of 7 GPA in order to apply for the Doctor of Physiotherapy. So that's a minimum requirement. There's also some prerequisite areas of study that students need to be able to meet. In order to demonstrate this, there's a supplementary application form that needs to accompany the application into the university's admission centre. There's 4 key areas that students need to show that they've done some undergraduate study in. Firstly, and not surprisingly, is anatomy. But anatomy has 2 key areas of it, and this is really important for people to get right in terms of their application. So we need students to be able to have studied some general anatomy. That includes things like histology and embryology, but then also some additional study in a specific area of musculoskeletal anatomy. And so having those 2, so often it requires 2 units typically for people to be able to meet those requirements. And then the other key areas are physiology, psychology, and research methods. So having specific studies in those areas. And there's more details about that within the supplementary admissions information online. So people can obtain more detail about that there. It's a competitive entry, so meeting the prerequisite requirements doesn't necessarily guarantee entry, but it enables you to apply. And then we look at GPA as the final kind of deciding factor. So once you've met all the requirements, then it's based on GPA. So it's important that students studying undergraduate courses work on getting their GPA up nice and high so that they're competitive when they apply. Coming into the course, it's a 3-year extended master's program. So it's 3 years full-time. We have a mid-year intake, so we come into session 2, so we start in July and we finish in July. And that's really great, as I'm sure Kate will be able to speak to, in that it's quite different to the majority of other physiotherapy schools. So when you're coming out on graduation, you're actually coming out into a fairly, there's lots of positions usually available at that time of year. And so our graduates usually snap jobs up really quite quickly. So that's nice. We study across the 2 main semesters, so session 1 and session 2 studies, and students can expect it to be a fairly full and intense sort of semesters. It's a fairly intense course that covers a wide range of things. The first year focuses predominantly on building those foundation skills and knowledge that are required in order to sort of build the foundations of physiotherapy practice. We do lots of clinical placement hours. So across the whole course, we've got over 1,000 hours of clinical placement that are obtained through a mixture of both block clinical placements and also some integrated clinical placement units that are conducted whilst coursework study is going on. And we also then in the back end of the course enhance skills by including studies around things like leadership, advocacy, business, research, and advanced physio practice. So yeah, so a good way of setting you up to be quite competitive upon exit from the course.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Thank you for that. That was a really good overview. Now, if there's anyone watching at home that does want a little bit more information about some of the things that Taryn mentioned, so entry requirements, how to apply, and the course structure, you can have a look at the Doctor of Physiotherapy degree on our website via our course finder. Now, on to Kate and Jake. I'm sure our viewers are also really curious about what inspired you both to pursue physiotherapy, what your student experience was like or has been like, and what it's like to work as a physiotherapist. So I might start with you, Kate, before passing on to you, Jake.
Thanks, Livia. So like a lot of people, I played sport and I had interactions with physios kind of getting me back out on the court. I thought, this is great. I really want to be a sports physio. And then I went to Macquarie and it was the best experience. It opened my eyes. Like Taryn said, you get to over 1,000 hours of clinical experience. And you get to see all the different types of physiotherapy that are out there. So currently I work at the Children's Hospital at Westmead. So not quite sport that I came in for, but I found my passion at uni, which is pediatrics. And then also in the hospital system, you get to work with a range of conditions and you get to rotate. So you might see cardiorespiratory patients. Currently I'm working in the pediatric ICU here. But then you also get to see neuro patients as well, musculoskeletal, so you work in the outpatient setting as well. And then I got to spend a bit of time as well recently in our ortho clinic, so like fracture clinic, learning how to do casts on people, which is a pretty cool skill. But very interesting how my passion for physio came from somewhere else, but Macquarie developed it into a passion I didn't even realise that I had.
Very cool. Jake, did you want to share as well?
Yeah, so I'm very similar. Grew up playing a lot of sports and had a few injuries. So spent a lot of time at the physio and really sparked my passion to jump in and learn how to do that myself. And Macquarie's placements so far, I've been in hospitals for 3. I've had a sport placement, and right now I'm on a telehealth placement with some children, so a pediatric telehealth placement. And I've still got 2 more to go next year. So currently right now, because the spectrum of placements and opportunities is so great, I'm actually not too sure what I want to jump into yet. I'm lucky that I've got so much choice going in next semester that I can really focus and have a good look at what I want to do in the future.
I think a great thing, in your final semester, like you're saying, you still have 2 placements, Jake. One of my favorite things in my final semester at Macquarie is you also get an elective placement. So if you find something that you're really interested in, that's something that you can choose. Like I knew I was interested in pediatrics and I was fortunate to get an elective placement here at the Children's Hospital. So I think that's something that Macquarie offers. Like you said, you get so many placement opportunities, but we have an elective, so you can really try and choose something that you're interested in.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really unique about the physio profession, is that from the outset, both Kate and Jake have spoken to, is that typically most people are very aware of the sports and musculoskeletal side of physiotherapists and physiotherapy and the way we practice in private practices out in the community. And that's often the first involvement that the vast majority, certainly not all, but the vast majority of our students have with physiotherapy. And look, a long time ago, when I studied physiotherapy, a very long time ago, that was my similar experience as well. You know, I came from a sporting background, and that's not where I ended up either in my clinical career. You know, I worked in traumatic brain injury and complex neuro and orthopedic rehabilitation. And I think the diversity of physio is what's so refreshing about it. It's that there's so many different areas of practice that it can meet, you know, the passions and the experience of so many different people. And it's also the skills in one area are often quite transferable to another. So you don't have to necessarily sort of think, I've started along this journey and that's where I've got to go. It's actually quite easy also to take your skills and your knowledge and transfer them into a different area of practice at a later point in your career. And lots of my colleagues who have been professionals for sort of 20 years have often traversed a number of different areas throughout their careers as they've grown and new opportunities have presented. And there's constantly evolving areas of practice as well. Workplace and safety, for example, has become, workplace wellbeing has become a very strong area of practice for physiotherapists. We've got physiotherapists now involved very much with public health. We've got physiotherapists working within the COVID units here, working in vaccination hubs. So there's lots of different areas of practice. As Jake mentioned, a telehealth placement, that's certainly a very quickly, rapidly growing area of practice. So I think what physio is continuing to evolve as the needs of people evolve. But I think one thing that's really important to recognise is that there is a lot of job opportunities out there. We're in an ageing population with chronic health conditions, and health is incredibly important. And so there's lots of scope for physios to find, the areas that might interest them.
Definitely. And from the sounds of it, the fact that physio students at Macquarie get so many opportunities for different placements, as well as, elective opportunities, allows them to explore all of those different areas of physio and maybe, in Kate's experience, find an area that they're more interested in that they didn't know about in the first place. So that's really great. I guess just following that up, I know, Jake, that you said you've got, still some more upcoming placements, but I just wanted to know maybe what your career aspirations were moving forward.
Yeah, so at the moment, I've really enjoyed all my hospital placements, similar to what Kate was saying, where she gets the opportunity to try all the different things throughout the year on, it's called allocation with New South Wales Health. So that's my immediate prospects next year. I'll be applying for that. But then beyond that, I'll have an opportunity to trial everything. So I haven't decided on any certainty yet.
Yeah, no worries. At least you get to see where that goes and trial different areas and hopefully find your passion or multiple passions within that. And then for Kate, obviously just starting in the physio profession, how do you see your career developing over the next few years?
Look, I don't really have a strict trajectory that I see it going, just because there's so many different options at the moment. And like we're saying, very fortunate at being able to rotate into different areas in the hospital. So I haven't quite found one that I know I'll end up in, but I think that's really positive because I'm enjoying all the different rotations. So I don't quite know where I'll end up, but I'm really enjoying, hopefully it'll be in pediatrics.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, it's great to hear both of your plans moving forward, and even just the fact that it sounds like you have so many options available to you. So just a reminder for anyone at home, if you did have questions for our students, please join the conversation anytime by putting your questions in the Q&A portion. We'll go to some of those in just a bit. Now back to you, Taryn. You mentioned a little bit before about some of the trends, but we know that studies in Australia show that 1 in 3 Australians actually have some form of musculoskeletal condition, and that's why physiotherapy is such a pivotal healthcare service. So I was just wondering, with the growing demand, what are some of the trends that graduates could look forward to in their careers?
Yeah, look, I think there's many trends. I think certainly musculoskeletal conditions are obviously a big area of practice for us, and there is a growing trend in that in many, many different ways. Certainly chronic health conditions contribute to that and add to the complexity of that. So whether you're working in private practice and treating people coming in with low back pain or knee pain or shoulder pain, they're still also coming in with diabetes and cardiovascular disease and arthritis. And those are conditions where physios play a pivotal role. So I think we're continuing to evolve our practice in those areas and contributing to not just the immediate health of maybe a problem that makes someone present to a physiotherapist, but also contributing to the long-term health of individuals and populations. And that's certainly a need. There's also with the aging population, there's certainly very much a need, and physiotherapy got very much highlighted within the Royal Commission that looked at aged care, and so the requirements around that, and that's certainly a growing area as people can see the benefits for individuals in that space. As Kate mentioned, paediatrics is you know, an increasingly popular area of work, and again, as we continue to recognise the different needs for children and the fact that they're not the same as adults and they present with different problems at different points in their young lifespans. So, you know, that's different. And I think the biggest one's probably around technology. So whether it's thinking about telehealth or whether it's harnessing technology in different ways that allows us to interact with patients. And we're an increasingly global profession, and Australia's well placed as a global leader in physiotherapy. Our physios are highly respected around the world. And so I think, you know, that as we continue to work globally, you know, we become closer. We've got some students that are doing a research study with one of our colleagues in the UK at the moment. We've had students be able to sort of undertake some telehealth placements with the George's Hospital in London. So we've got an increasing sort of development into telehealth space, and that is only going to continue to grow.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we've seen it, I think, in COVID, but in general, technology use continuing to rise. And yeah, definitely telehealth is one of those areas. So it's good to see that physios can be used within that space. Now, I'm just going to finish with the last question from me for Kate and Jake. So it's just, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give to a prospective student, either considering the Doctor of Physiotherapy or even just a career in physiotherapy in general? I might start with you, Jake, for this one.
Yep. So I think coming into the course just with an open mind, because there's so many fields of physio that I didn't even know before and then probably another hot tip would just be to ask questions, because all the staff and clinical educators are so knowledgeable that the most I've learned is just asking questions and getting great answers.
Fantastic. What about you, Kate?
I think, well, I would 100% obviously recommend physio and at Macquarie. I think one of my favorite things about Macquarie, I'll just highlight, is that it is a nice small cohort. So you get to know all your peers. And I found something that that's the thing that I really like about physio. Getting involved with your peers, obviously in the classroom, but outside as well, even social events. Obviously at the moment we can't have normal social events, but societies are putting on things like Zoom calls and everything like that to get to know each other. So I think there's an amazing side at Macquarie, like with your small cohort, you get to know all the teachers, the facilities that are around. I didn't even mention we have our own hospital on campus, which you get a lot of experience out of. You'll get to see a lot of different things. And also one thing I've found quite helpful since entering the workforce is that we do a unit at Macquarie where you actually study with the medical students. And I think after entering into a hospital, a lot of it is that multidisciplinary team. So working with the medical team, occupational therapists, everything like that. So I learned a lot of those skills at uni, which I can carry into my career. But just get involved. I think it's a great chance. It's a great time to get to know people. And I think people you meet at uni, you'll even in my first year reaching out to other people who are working in areas that I'm not, because they know more. Think people who are working in hands know a lot more about hands. So if I've got a question, I can ask something like that. But I know I'm just waffling on, but I best experience studying at Macquarie.
That's what we want to hear, Kate. But yeah, as a student coming to the end of my undergraduate degree, I completely agree, getting involved in everything you can. And obviously in the physio program, you have lots of opportunities to, work with your teachers, other students, and get that experience. So definitely just getting involved in all of that. But thank you so much for that advice, both Kate and Jake, and thank you all for a really informative and interesting discussion. So we're actually now going to open this up to Q&A. So if anyone watching at home, please post any questions that you may have for our panel, whether it's a question about studying at Macquarie, what's involved, anything that you want to know about the physio profession or the degree itself. We'll try to answer those now. So we have had a few come through. Just the first one for you, Taryn, which is why should I study Doctor of Physiotherapy when I could do it either as an undergraduate degree or even as a master's degree at other universities?
Yeah, good question. Firstly, undergraduate degrees in physio are now, there's a lot less of them. So they are becoming, I suppose they're just not as common now as the postgraduate offerings. They're incredibly competitive. So a lot of our students who have come into a postgraduate course in physiotherapy have not, the ATAR usually to get into an undergraduate physio course in Australia is up usually, very much in the high 90s. I mean, some, up in the ends of 98, 99, because it's considered to be quite a competitive area. A lot of people want to study it. And so most of our students were not eligible to study it as an undergraduate degree and instead went on to study something else in their undergraduate program and then came into the masters. And very much that's the way that things are moving in physio globally, is that it is being seen to be a postgraduate qualification more so. In regards to the 2 to 3 year masters, there's a number of differences. The prime ones are the extra clinical hours. So you can't fit over 1,000 hours of clinical placement into a 2-year master's course. So for us, particularly if you're interested in working overseas, in a lot of countries, you have to have that as a requirement to even be eligible to work overseas. So certainly that's the case in places like Canada and the United States. You actually can't apply to work as a physio in the United States without a doctor of physio. So even a general master's does not make you eligible to apply for registration in the United States. So in some places, the DPT is the minimum standard. So certainly with clinical placement, I think the additional things is it allows us to spend that 1 extra year to work on the skills that make you a better physio and make you much more competitive in the marketplace. So things like being able to study leadership, advocacy, business, to give you those basic business skills, none of that is included in a general master's program. We sort of focus on much more advanced physio practice. So we cover topics, again, which are not able to be covered in a general master's just simply because of time and space. So for example, students study things like wound care with us, which is actually an incredibly important skill for physios to kind of know, but it's not necessarily a key requirement for us for accreditation. So being able to have time and to also study. So we also, in our advanced practice units, look at things like emergency department physio and some of those sort of more extended areas of physio practice. So I think that, and I'm sure Kate and Jake can probably speak to that a little bit more, but I think those are the key considerations that differentiate us from the masters.
Yeah, just quickly, did either Kate or Jake want to add anything on why they chose the Doctor of Physiotherapy program?
A lot of things have already, sorry, I didn't know who to talk first. A lot of things have already been touched on. But one thing I have found very helpful since entering the workforce is also undertaking research at Macquarie. I think that was really helpful. We do quite a large chunk in our last year kind of developing a bit of a thesis and working. And I think that's been really helpful because obviously physio is an evidence-based profession and we're constantly looking at evidence. And I think after undertaking that at uni, it gives me a greater understanding when I read research articles.
And I was exactly the same. Extra clinical placements and research, those skills and opportunities that others didn't have. Yeah,
definitely. Well, there's a lot of positives then on doing this doctorate program over other master's programs. Now we have a question specifically for Kate, as someone wants to know about what your daily routine is like as a new physio.
As a new physio, so I'm very fortunate at the moment. So I'm in a rotating position as a new grad in a public hospital system. As Jake mentioned, it's called allocation. So my day varies at the moment, but I'm in ICU. So I'm here usually, it could be 8 till 4:30, 8 till 5. Then I'm actually on call tonight from 11:30 till 8 a.m. If someone needs physio, I'll be the person called in. I'll be in ICU a lot, so working with cardiorespiratory stuff at the moment, so looking at getting secretions out of lungs, and then at the moment I also see quite a high cystic fibrosis population and cardiac surgeries. So that's kind of what my day's like at the moment, but in previous rotations, it was working in fracture clinic as well, like I mentioned, which was pretty cool, and then seeing outpatients as well, people coming in. And in the program I'm in, we also get a secondment. So I was off on secondment down on the south coast at Shoalhaven Hospital for 13 weeks. So then I also had the opportunity, then I worked with adults as well. So constantly developing my skills in that way. So my day varies all the time. But yeah, that's kind of a normal day.
It looks like you have a lot of different things to, I guess,
Yeah.
look forward to, and a lot of different things to explore in the program you're in. So that sounds really good.
Yeah,
so
I think
another one.
That's one of my favorite things. Oh, sorry. One of my favorite things. No day is ever the same as the other, which is really nice.
It definitely sounds like it. But you know, that's I think what probably makes it so exciting for you as well. Now, another one for Taryn. I know you mentioned a little bit before about, you know, different organizations in different countries accepting, you know, the Doctor of Physiotherapy. So someone just wants to know, will I be qualified to be a physiotherapist right after you complete the program?
Yeah, good question. So physiotherapists, if we speak to Australia, physiotherapists are registered with AHPRA. So as are, you know, doctors, nurses, OTs, a whole bunch of other professions. So we're registerable with AHPRA. So when you complete the Doctor of Physiotherapy course, it makes you eligible to apply for registration as a physio. So you can't call yourself a physio until you're registered with AHPRA. Physiotherapist is a protected title. No one can just use it. So we, at the end of your degree, we sort of tell AHPRA that you've met all the requirements from an academic perspective. And then there's a few other things that you have to be able to sort of show to AHPRA in order to be registered. And there's some basic things like you have to have your identity verified. You have to undertake a criminal record check. You have to have a certain level of English, which if you've studied in Australian schooling systems and things is not a problem, but that's a consideration for individuals who have maybe come from overseas. You have to meet sort of those sort of basic kind of requirements to be able to kind of practice as a physio. So there's a few extra stipulations that you just have to do at the end of your course. They're generally very similar to the actual requirements that we have in terms of our inherent requirements and fitness to practice requirements throughout the course. So when you come into the course, you have to have a certain there's certain requirements that you have to meet in order to practice as a physiotherapist. And that's just to ensure that you're safe to practice as a physio. So there's conditions around things like you have to have a working with children's check. You have to be able to have a criminal record check. There's certain vaccination standards that you have to be able to meet, those sorts of things that are required by New South Wales Health and the like. So, but your academic, once you've completed our course and have graduated, then the academic portion of your registration is done. It's just those additional parts that you have to undertake. Yeah. But it's done very quickly. So yeah, so usually it's very quick after graduation because you can start that registration process before you actually get your final marks. So you can do things like set up all of the other parts so that it's ready to go. And then once you've kind of got your final results, then it's actually generally very quick. Again, particularly because you come out in the middle of the year. So they're not having to register, you know, a whole lot of new physios at once. It's actually only quite a small number that are generally coming out of our course. So it's usually quick, and so most graduates have their registration and can practice as a physio within sort of 1 month to sort of 6 weeks post finishing with us.
Fantastic. No, that makes sense. And thanks for clarifying that process. Just sounds like there's a few extra things that you need to do to get the title of being a physiotherapist. But, you know, at least you can start that as well before you finish up the degree.
And we run, and at the end of the year, when it comes to closer to the time that people finish, we actually run an information session for our students on that process. So we sort of step you through it and give you lots of guidance. And so it's nothing that you have to sort of, you know, you sort of landed in and with no information.
Yeah, fantastic. Might be one of the last ones for this afternoon, but what undergraduate degree did you complete before doing the physiotherapy program, and how did you then find that transition into postgraduate study?
So I completed Bachelor of Human Sciences, majoring in human movement at Macquarie. And that degree, being at Macquarie as well, actually prepped me to go into this degree by meeting all the prerequisite subjects. But I also found actually studying an undergraduate degree first made it a lot easier to transition into postgrad, because I already had the studying skills and all the skills I needed to actually watch lectures and take notes. And the transition was really smooth. And the staff at Macquarie know that, and they really walk you through getting set up as well.
No, that's really, really good. Thank you.
Sorry. And I just did a Bachelor of Exercise Science. Essentially, I just did mine over in America, and like Jake, made sure I got all of the prerequisites, as Taryn mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and we mentioned at the start that people come from, you know, different backgrounds as well, but just making sure that you meet those prerequisites and you can, you know, hopefully apply for and get into the physiotherapy degree. Now, we did have a few more questions, but we're running a little bit short on time. So if you are at home and did ask a question, we will definitely get back to you. We'll get back to you either via email or via phone call about an answer to your question. But for now, we may wrap up this session. So I just want to say thank you so much to Taryn, Kate and Jake for their time and insights into the Doctor of Physiotherapy program and, you know, the physio profession as well. Just a reminder for everyone watching at home too, if you would like to be considered for an early offer for this program, you need to submit your application and those supplementary forms that we were talking about via UAC by the 31st of October. The deadline for all other applications is the 31st of January 2022, so still a little bit of time before that closing date. Now, at the end of the expo, you'll also all receive detailed information, including our contact details and how to book a one-on-one consultation with an expert to realise any career goals you may have at Macquarie. But for now, take care, everyone, and we hope to see you at Macquarie University soon.